Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss Married to Medicine Season 8, Episodes 9 and 10. I decided that I would just combine both recaps together since I am late. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for bearing with me. This has been a crazy week to say the least, okay? So without further ado, let's just hop right on into it and get into episode 9 quickly. And then we're going to get into that little freaky deaky party that Dr. Jackie threw, okay? Because I kind of got all of my life, all right? I'm not going to even hold you. Mind your business, okay? I'm grown. So we start episode 9 off with the ladies still in DC and they're at dinner, and guess who shows up? The Real Housewives of Potomac girls. So it is a Married to Medicine Real Housewives crossover. Miss Giselle and Robin show up, and if you watch my Potomac recaps, then you know how I feel about Miss Giselle and Robin, okay? But I digress. So anyhow, they sit down. Heavenly says that she loves Giselle because Giselle is a straight shooter. So of course, the conversation turns to men and relationships. The women start digging into Giselle's relationship reconciliation with Pastor Jamal Bryant, and we see him in another scene with the men. They're having some guys' night just chatting about the ladies. So then Lisa-Nicole goes on to ask if anybody else's husband is dealing with a midlife crisis. And we know that Lisa-Nicole's husband has been putting her through hell for the past decade with all of his cheating. And instead of Lisa-Nicole having adequate self-esteem to just leave that fool because he clearly does not want to be married or tied down, she just insists on making it work. But again, I digress. Have I told you guys how much I do not like Lisa-Nicole? Like, I cannot stand her. She was so aggravating when she was a full-time cast member. But again, let me not get off a topic. So Contessa shakes her head yes. She's like, oh my gosh. Scott is definitely going through something. I don't know what it is, but he's turning 50 and things are just awry. Contessa then brings up cheating. And all of the women are like, excuse me, girl, like what? And everybody's a little bit confused because when you do look at Contessa and Scott, they do seem to be happily married. And so Contessa goes on to say something like, you know, when men cheat, it's not because of us. And sometimes after the affair, the marriage gets stronger. I was like, excuse me? I was looking at Contessa with such confusion when she said that. And I know that I have said it in almost every single recap, but I just am not believing that they're having marital problems. I just don't know why. It just feels very fake to me. And the way that Contessa dominated the conversation to talk about Scott and their problems, it felt so forced. I just wasn't believing it. I was like, it's just feeling like Contessa is doing all this to stay on the show. Can somebody drop down in the comments and let me know how you guys feel? Do y'all think that Contessa and Scott are faking, or do you really think that they're going through some stuff? Let me know, because I'm just still not convinced, and we are 10 episodes in, and I'm just kind of like, y'all are playing around for a storyline. But again, I digress. So now the ladies get back to the house. We see Simone gossiping with Cecil about Contessa and Scott's alleged marital issues. Cecil says that he would not wish marital issues on anybody because y'all remember when him and Simone were going through it. And I still feel like their marriage is on the rocks, but that's just my opinion. So now we see all of the ladies and their husbands eating breakfast, and they are having one last toast to a great week in DC. And in the following scene, we see that they are all back in Atlanta. So we see Anila and Toya together in the car with their kids in the back seat, and we find out that they're going to be carpooling since the kids all go to the same school. So the kids get out the car, and now it's just Anila and Toya just talking. The conversation goes from light fun to some shade. And Toya is just letting Anila know that it is not cool that she ran out on the bill of the makeup artist and the hairstylist that did her hair and makeup when they were in DC. And Toya is like, girl, that blogging obviously isn't making enough money because you out here running out on the tab. And Anila's trying to laugh it off like, girl, I'm going to pay them when I pay them. Like, it is what it is. We're building a house right now.
Having no money problems, believe me.
So I'm thinking,
no
are you
money,
broke?
Yes, no money problems whatsoever. That's Toni Braxton.
Yeah.
And while I do not see it for Toya, while she gets on my nerves, I find that her attitude can be very nasty. I will say that I am on Toya's side about this. Anila, you are dead wrong. If you can't afford to get your hair and your nails done and your makeup done, then you don't need to say yes to their services. That is not right that those folks did your hair and makeup, got you all glammed up for a week straight, and you didn't pay them.
If you know you're not fab, stop coming out like, bitch, like you that girl.
I cannot stand cheap people. And I'm not one to pocket watch or tell somebody what not to buy, but it seems like you guys did yourself a disservice adding on an additional 5,000 square feet to an already gorgeous home. It seems like y'all are really having some financial issues. Your husband already revealed in a few episodes prior that y'all are over $1 million over budget. I don't know if you need to take a loan out, but you need to pay those people, and you need to call them up and see if they accept credit card as payment, and get your American Express out and pay those folks. You are dead wrong. Toya was absolutely correct when she got you together about how that's not cool. And you were sitting there looking stupid because she was checking you. She was telling you the truth. So now it's the night of Jackie's dinner party, and we see Heavenly and Anila are riding together. And Heavenly says in the confessional that she wants to get to know Anila for herself. Heavenly goes into the whole incident that happened when Quad got really nasty with her on Instagram over that vacation picture in Mexico. So Heavenly says that she was really hurt by it, and rightfully so, because it really does seem that Heavenly did not mean any harm. But with Heavenly, it's just hard because she does say a lot of shady things. So it's very easy to not give her the benefit of the doubt and just go in on her. Simone arrives. She is blown away by the renovations in Jackie's house. And I have to say that Jackie's home is gorgeous, okay? That was money well spent. And then, last but not least, Miss Quad arrives, and she comes bearing gifts. She brings a bottle of Ciroc for Miss Simone. I think she gave Jackie a bottle of water because I don't think Jackie drinks. And then she gives a bottle of Crown Royal to Heavenly because Heavenly loves some Crown Royal. So the vibe is just a little off because everybody can feel the tension between Quad and Heavenly. But they're trying their best to make nice, okay? And play nice for a few seconds before things go left. So now we see Jackie giving all of the ladies a house tour. And we find out that Jackie spent over $400,000 on the house renovations. That was money well spent because Jackie's home looks like the inside of a Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, okay? Just absolutely flawless. She did that. So now the ladies finally sit down to eat, and Quad goes on to ask for French fries. I was like, sis, really? Like, this beautiful spread that Jackie has, and you're going to ask for French fries? And so Quad throws some shade in her confessional, saying that when she has dinner parties, she gives the people what they want. She gives truffle fries and scallops and lobster, not just chicken and lettuce. And it was like, if you don't like the dinner, keep that to yourself. I try to like Quad, but she always just has to have something to say. Like, she just can't help herself. It's always this nice, nasty shade, these slick reads, and it's like, girl, can't you ever just give a compliment to somebody, why does it always have to be some sort of backhanded way to say that you would do something better? I really have an issue with people like that. So, of course, the whole emoji mishap between Quad and Heavenly gets brought up. Quad starts off by saying that since she has an Android and not an iPhone, the emojis appear different on her text thread. And she says that she misread the whole thing because she assumed that Heavenly had put an emoji that like suggested that she smelled or something like that. So that's why she took it as shade. They start screaming at each other at the top of their lungs, and Jackie has to calm both of them down. Finally, we see Quad walk to the end of the table, and then she says, "Come on, Heavenly, meet me halfway." Both of them hug it out, and they're both crying like, "Girl, why did we even get in this stupid fight anyway? You know I love you to death." They make up. I was like, thank God. Because from the previews, I thought it was going to be a knockdown, drag out fight where there was going to be no resolution and their friendship was going to be over. So dessert comes out, and that is where the episode ends. Now on to episode 10 and this sex party that Dr. Jackie threw, okay? Because I was feeling it. So we start off episode 10 with Contessa finding out that she has tested positive for COVID. And because of that, she now has to be in isolation for 14 days, and she has to notify everybody that she was in contact with, and they too have to be in isolation for 14 days as well. So we see that all of the ladies, Quad, Toya, Carrie, Lisa-Nicole, Jackie, Simone, are all in isolation for the next 2 weeks. So we see, I think it was day 8 of their isolation, they had a cute little Zoom party, and it was everybody on the Zoom call except for Toya. And then we move on to the next scene with Contessa and all of the ladies being free at last. They are out of the isolation period, and we see Contessa headed on over to her girl Quad's house. And I was cracking up when Contessa got there, and Quad was like, "Look, I know you good and all, but I gotta spray you down with some Lysol." I said, "Quad, really? Lysol is not supposed to be on your skin." Quad is so extra, it drives me nuts. But I digress. So they head on into Quad's kitchen, and Quad has a really nice spread. She has some sushi and some soup all laid out for them, and they get to talking. Contessa makes a joke about how she wants to borrow Quad's dogs. And Quad is like, "Girl, I don't think so. What happened to your dogs?" Contessa lets us know that her nanny took both of their dogs. So now they get to talking about husbands. And Contessa brings up her issues with Scott. And she brings up how he's going through some midlife crisis because he's on the cusp of 50. Quad says, "Yup, that's when they get stupid, because you see how Dr. G, my ex-husband, did when he turned 50. So Contessa reveals that Scott is actually resentful of her, and he told her a few weeks ago that he would have left her, and she's just feeling some sort of way about it. And she also lets it be known that in the past 10 years, she hasn't done anything for herself. She needs to tell Scott that she's not going to allow this, and that she is going to do what she needs to do so that she can be happy and fulfilled. Or just get a divorce. Simple as that, right? So now we move on to the next scene, and we see Toya over at Lisa-Nicole's house. Lisa-Nicole bothers me to no end, and I'm going to continue to say that every time she appears on my screen.
There we go. Thank you.
And you're gonna always get it again and again and again.
And Lisa-Nicole goes on to ask Toya why wasn't she on that Zoom call that Heavenly had hosted. And then she goes on to say how the Zoom call was crazy and how Heavenly was talking a lot of trash about Toya. And we see Heavenly say something on the call about how Toya is a broke bitch or whatever have you, something of that variation. And then she goes on to say that Quad was actually sticking up for you. And Toya's like, well, I heard that she was actually being shady. So Lisa-Nicole says, yeah, she was being shady, but she was sticking up for you, even though it was shade. So Toya is just over it, okay? She just feels like, I don't need to be around women where it's always an issue, where they're always talking behind my back. Like, I don't need this. So while they're talking about Heavenly and Quad, Lisa-Nicole's phone rings and it's Jackie. Jackie is on speaker and she lets Toya and Lisa-Nicole know that she wants to invite them to her self-love party. And it's going to be all about sex and love and intimacy and pleasure, all of that good stuff. So now we move on to Heavenly and her son, Zachary, I think, or was it Damon Jr.? But one of her sons who also wants to get into flipping houses, they are on their way to look at a potential investment property on the lake. Heavenly is giving him advice in the car saying, look, don't be too excited or too giddy when you look at the house. Just act like it's cool because remember, they're going to try to get you to pay the price that they want you to pay and you're not going to be able to lowball them because they know that you are in love with the house. So Heavenly and her son get to the investment property and it is a cute house. We find out that it's 3,400 square feet right on the lake, really great space, but it is insanely over budget. I think the budget was $135,000 and this house is over $400,000. So Heavenly is like, look, are you kidding me? Like, this is not what we agreed on. So while they're doing the house tour, the agent takes Heavenly and her son out to the lake. We find out that Heavenly is not only enamored with the house, but she now wants to buy it for them and have it in the family and then rent it out to other people to make some money. And she's like, we can flip other properties, but I want to keep this one. So the son is in agreement. He's cool with that. He's just excited for this to happen. And they bring the agent back over. And Heavenly goes on to say that she would like the price knocked down a few pegs. And the agent is like, look, y'all need to move fast because we already have a potential buyer that has a great offer on the table. So Heavenly is like, okay, cool. The scene ends and we move on to Dr. Jackie's sex party. So all of the ladies trickle in one by one. Lisa-Nicole arrives first, then Heavenly arrives, Anila arrives, Quad arrives, Simone arrives, and they are all waiting for Toya to get there. So everybody's there just talking, and Dr. Jackie brings out her friend and the hostess of the party. Her name is Shanice, and she goes by Niecy. That's her pleasure, sex name. We find out that Niecy is in the porn business. And all of the ladies are like, okay now, like, all right. So the conversation gets started off rip. They start talking about masturbation. Quad lets it be known that she touches herself on the daily, honey. That's how her skin is so smooth and supple. I was like, I know that's right. I have to say, I really did enjoy this episode. It's always fun when the ladies of any show on Bravo get loose and just have a good time. I am all about having a good time. A good old nasty time. So before the games can begin, they all break off to get some food, and Jackie had a really nice spread set for all of them. Everybody's eating and talking amongst themselves, and we see Simone and Anila getting food, and Simone is asking where Toya's at. She goes on to say, have you talked to her? Have you heard from her? Like, where's she at? Anila's like, no, I haven't talked to her. And you could tell that something's off because Anila's disposition turned. Like she wasn't her usual bubbly self, especially about Toya. So Simone is kind of pressing like, oh, like why haven't you heard from her? What's going on? And Anila lets it be known that she has heard around their neighborhood that Toya is going around talking about her. And she's really upset about it, and she has some choice words for Toya. So all the ladies are still talking and eating and laughing, and then finally, Toya graces everybody with her presence. And Toya was a little bit chilly when she came in. She hugged Jackie, but she just waved to Contessa and Quad and Heavenly. She was not trying to go over there. And Heavenly and Quad feel some sort of way about it. So Toya sits down at the table with Anila, Simone. I think, was Lisa-Nicole at that table? I don't know, but she's at the table with all them. So Anila is giving Toya one-word answers, and she is just dry. So Toya is picking up on the vibes, and she's like, girl, what's going on? You're not your usual bubbly, smiling self. Like, you know, like, girl, what's tea? Like, did something happen? So Anila just lays it all out on the line, and she's like, girl, I heard that you were talking about me around the neighborhood. Like, that's not cool. So she's getting really emotional. Toya's taken aback, like, girl, like, slow down. Like, what are you saying? And Toya was being dismissive of Anila and her feelings. Toya's just kind of like, girl, like, can you stop with the dramatics? Like, enough already. Like, I'm not trying to hear this. I just sat down, and you sit up here giving me a sob story. So Anila keeps going on and on about how folks in the neighborhood, I think their tennis partners, have been hearing the rumblings about her not having money and not paying those makeup artists and hairstylists that were in DC. So here's my thing about this whole situation. I know that Toya was denying that she was going around saying anything, but there's a very good chance that her makeup artists and the hairstylists are the ones going around telling everybody in town that Toya's friend Anila did not pay them. Look, when you stiff people, when you cheat people out of money, when you do wrong by people, when it comes to, you know, the moolah, you cannot be surprised if somebody tries to blast you about it. Anila's in the wrong, and she needs to pay. So anyhow, they're arguing. Everybody's looking like, what's going on? Like, not the two best friends arguing, child. So Contessa and them are trying to eavesdrop, and Jackie is trying to break it up, but she sees that there's going to be no relief anytime soon. So she lets them argue all the way over there, and the party is over here. DC goes around asking everybody, I guess, what their freak number is. And so the ladies all rate themselves on a scale from 1 to 10. So Jackie rates herself a 7 on the freak number scale, and Niecy has a gift for her, and it's a toy inside, and she's like, Curtis can put that up inside you, and you guys have a good time. So everybody's like, okay now. So then Heavenly goes, I think Heavenly says that she's a 5 on the scale, and we see that it's like a dog bone that you can bite into. When I tell you, I was screaming. And usually Heavenly is so prudish. You know, I don't talk about this. Like, I'm a Christian woman and all that. So it was really funny to see her let loose. And I was crying when she put it in her mouth. And Quad was pretending like she was spanking her. She was like, now tell me you're going to be good to your friends or something like that. And everybody was dying laughing. I was like, oh my gosh, they are so crazy. So then Lisa-Nicole says that she's a 7. I think she got like an anal plug or something like that. Simone says she's a 7. She got a bell to like ring for sex. Someone else said that they were... I don't know who it was, but somebody said they were another 7, and then Contessa gets up and rates herself a 10. So then Niecy is like, girl, come up here since you were 10. And she gives Contessa a collar. So it's like, you know, bondage, BDSM. And so she has Contessa like get on her hands and knees, and then she gets out a whip and starts spanking Contessa. So all the ladies are like, ooh, like, you know, Contessa got a little booty on her. And Heavenly makes a joke about how Contessa is actually a very sexy woman. And so I was laughing because I said, I usually find Contessa to be so dry, but I thought that she was fun and seeing a different side of her. I thought it was cool, but I thought the scene was really, really just funny. And it was nice to see that the argument between Toya and Anila didn't cross over into the fun. So now the party is over. Niecy leaves and they're thanking Jackie for a great time. They take a group picture, and you can tell in the group picture that Toya is checked out. She's just tired of all these women coming at her for one reason or another, okay? She's just not into it. So now we get to the final scene of the night with Quad and Heavenly. Quad is at Heavenly's house, and they're having a little key, okay? And it was funny because when she first got there, she was picking on Alora. She was like, Alora, not you got, hips and a butt and breasts and weave and makeup and lashes. Like, have you kissed a boy before? And Heavenly was looking like, if you don't leave my baby alone. But Alora was being such a good sport about it. She's a pretty girl. And so she goes up to her room to do homework, and Quad and Heavenly sit down to eat. And they start talking about Toya. And Heavenly brings up Toya's disposition at Jackie's sex party. So Heavenly goes on to say, yeah, I heard that Toya was calling Anila broke. So then Quad goes on to say that Toya is projecting, so she wants to deflect from her issues and put it out there that somebody else is having money problems. I personally don't think that's it at all. I think that Toya is just annoyed that she has a cheap friend who ran out on her makeup artist and hairstylist, because I'm sure that those folks are probably asking Toya for the money since Anila has not paid them. So they're talking about that, and Quad starts roasting Toya about how Toya didn't have money, how she couldn't afford I think she said Z Gallery in the past, and how Toya is smelling herself now since they finally have 2 nickels to rub together, and how she had to beg, borrow, and steal for the house. Look, at one point, Quad and Heavenly, y'all were good friends with Toya. So to sit up here and try to blast this girl and air her out about her potential money problems, that's just not right to me. Quad, no offense, but Sister Circle was canceled. You're now a friend of the show. I don't know what big checks you're getting that's making you talk so grand and making you bash Toya and her finances every other minute. But y'all, this was my recap for both episodes 9 and 10. I hope you all enjoyed. I actually had a really good time watching both episodes. These were pretty good. These were actually the best episodes of the season so far. But anyhow, thank you all again for watching. You already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.